There is a Pakistan the world thinks it knows. A country often reduced to headlines, crowded cities, political tension, and images of a difficult region caught between powerful neighbors. But beyond those headlines lies a completely different world. A world where some of the highest mountains on Earth rise above valleys that have connected civilizations for thousands of years. Where glaciers feed rivers that sustain entire regions. Where ancient cities were built more than 4,000 years ago, with streets, drainage systems, and urban planning that still astonish archaeologists today. Where Buddhist kingdoms once flourished along the ancient crossroads of Asia. Where remote communities have preserved traditions found nowhere else. And where modern megacities are growing alongside markets, mosques, universities, highways, and technology that are rapidly reshaping everyday life. From the frozen peaks of the Karakoram to the deserts of Sindh. From the ruins of Mohenjo-daro to the streets of Lahore and Karachi. Pakistan is not one story. It is thousands of years of history, hundreds of cultures, and some of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth, all meeting in one place. And this is the Pakistan you rarely see. The hidden side of Pakistan. Part 1, The Pakistan Beyond the Headlines. Pakistan is often introduced to the world through its headlines. Politics. Conflict. Crowded cities. A complicated relationship with its neighbors. But those images reveal only one part of a country that is far more diverse than it first appears. Stretching from the Arabian Sea in the south to some of the highest mountains on Earth in the north, Pakistan covers an extraordinary range of landscapes. There are vast plains in Punjab, dry deserts in Sindh, rugged mountains in the west, fertile river valleys, and remote highlands where villages can remain separated from major cities by enormous distances. And this geography has shaped the people who live here. Pakistan is home to more than 250 million people, making it one of the world's most populous countries. But its population is far from culturally uniform. Punjabi, Sindhi, Pashtun, Baloch, and many other communities have their own languages, traditions, music, food, and histories. In Lahore, centuries-old architecture stands beside universities, shopping districts, and modern highways. In Karachi, one of the largest cities in South Asia, millions of people live alongside one of the country's most important ports, connecting Pakistan to the Arabian Sea and the wider world. And far to the north, the landscape changes completely. The noise of the megacities gives way to narrow valleys, enormous mountains, and settlements scattered along rivers and slopes. This extraordinary diversity is partly explained by geography. Pakistan sits at a crossroads between South Asia, Central Asia, China, and the Middle East. For thousands of years, people, armies, merchants, religions, and ideas moved through these lands. Some came from the west. Others traveled across the mountains. And many followed the great river systems that made agriculture and urban civilization possible. That is why Pakistan cannot really be understood through a single image. It is a country shaped by mountains and rivers, deserts and cities, ancient civilizations and modern ambitions. And perhaps nowhere is this contrast more dramatic than in the far north. Because beyond the crowded plains, Pakistan rises into a world where the mountains seem almost impossible to reach. A world dominated by the Karakoram, the Himalayas, and the Hindu Kush. And this is where our journey truly begins. Part 2, Where the Mountains Touch the Sky. There is a place in Pakistan where the landscape seems to ignore the limits of scale. The roads become narrow. The valleys become deeper. Rivers cut through enormous walls of rock, while above them rise some of the highest mountains on Earth. This is northern Pakistan, a region where the Karakoram, Himalayas, and Hindu Kush converge across a landscape shaped by ice, altitude, and time. And here, standing above everything else, is K2. At 8,611 meters, K2 is the second highest mountain on Earth, surpassed only by Mount Everest. But its importance is not simply measured by height. Its steep walls, unpredictable weather, and remote location have made it one of the most formidable mountains in mountaineering. Yet K2 is only one part of this enormous landscape. Across Gilgit-Baltistan, glaciers descend between mountain peaks. Some stretch for dozens of kilometers, carrying ancient ice slowly through valleys that have been shaped over thousands of years. Among these mountains lies the Hunza Valley. Today, Hunza is known for its spectacular scenery, but its importance goes far beyond what appears in photographs. For centuries, communities living in these valleys existed along routes connecting South Asia with Central Asia and Western China. The mountains may look like barriers, but they were never completely closed worlds. People crossed them. Merchants carried goods through narrow passes. Travelers moved between distant civilizations. Languages, religions, technologies, and ideas traveled along the same routes. One of the most remarkable reminders of this history is Baltit Fort, overlooking the Hunza Valley. Its position was not accidental. From high above the valley, the fort commanded an important strategic location and reflected the political importance of Hunza in the mountain world around it. But life here was never easy. At high elevations, agriculture depends on careful irrigation. Winters can be severe. Roads can be cut off by snow, landslides, or avalanches. For generations, mountain communities learned to adapt to an environment where even basic survival required an intimate understanding of the landscape. Then, in the 20th century, something extraordinary happened. A modern road began cutting through this ancient world. The Karakoram highway stretches from Pakistan toward the Chinese border, crossing some of the most dramatic terrain on the planet. It follows routes that once depended on animals, footpaths, and mountain passes, but now connects communities separated by enormous distances and difficult geography. Along the highway, the scenery changes constantly. Bare cliffs give way to green valleys. Glaciers appear between mountains. Rivers rush through deep gorges. And settlements seem to cling to the narrowest pieces of land between rock and water. Yet perhaps the most remarkable thing about these mountains is not their height. It is the fact that people built lives here at all. For thousands of years, these valleys have been places of movement, exchange, adaptation, and survival. The mountains were not merely barriers. For centuries, they were also gateways between civilizations. And beyond them, in the plains and valleys below, another story was waiting, one that began long before the modern borders of Pakistan ever existed. Part 3, The Civilizations That Came Before Pakistan. Long before modern Pakistan existed, long before the Mughal Empire, long before Alexander the Great crossed into South Asia, cities were already rising along the rivers of this land. More than 4,000 years ago, one of the ancient world's great urban civilizations was taking shape here. Today, much of it survives only as ruins. But those ruins tell an extraordinary story. In the plains of Sindh stand the remains of Mohenjo-daro, one of the most important archaeological sites of the ancient world. At first glance, it may seem like little more than weathered bricks beneath the South Asian sun. But look closer, and something remarkable begins to emerge. The streets were laid out according to an organized plan. Buildings were constructed from standardized bricks. Homes had carefully designed spaces. And perhaps most surprisingly, the city possessed an extensive system for managing water and wastewater. For a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago, this level of urban organization is remarkable. Mohenjo-daro was not an isolated settlement. It belonged to the much larger Indus Valley Civilization, which extended across parts of what are now Pakistan and northwestern India. Another major center was Harappa, located hundreds of kilometers to the northeast. Together, these cities reveal a civilization built around agriculture, trade, craftsmanship, and complex urban life. Its merchants exchanged goods across enormous distances. Its artisans produced pottery, ornaments, tools, and intricate seals. And its cities were connected by systems of planning that suggest a remarkably organized society. Yet one of the greatest mysteries remains. The people of the Indus Valley Civilization left behind thousands of inscriptions and symbols. But their script has still not been conclusively deciphered. We can walk through their streets. We can examine their buildings. We can study their objects. But we still cannot confidently hear their own voices. That silence has made the civilization even more fascinating. What did these people call themselves? How was their society governed? What stories did they tell? And why did their great urban centers eventually decline? Archaeologists continue to investigate these questions. And the uncertainty is important. Because ancient history is not always a story with a clear ending. Sometimes, the ruins give us evidence without giving us answers. But the Indus Valley Civilization was only the beginning of the layers of history found across this region. Centuries later, new powers would arrive. The Persian Empire expanded into parts of the region. Then, in the 4th century BCE, Alexander of Macedon entered the northwestern territories of the Indian subcontinent during his campaign eastward. His armies encountered kingdoms, cities, and societies that had already existed for centuries. Alexander's campaign was brief compared with the thousands of years of history surrounding it. But it became another layer in the region's extraordinary historical landscape. Later came Gandhara. Centered in what is now northern Pakistan and parts of neighboring Afghanistan, Gandhara became one of the great centers of Buddhist culture. Its artists created sculptures that blended local traditions with influences arriving from the wider Hellenistic world. The result was a distinctive artistic tradition, one of the clearest examples of how cultures can meet, interact, and create something new. And the layers continued. Buddhist kingdoms gave way to Islamic dynasties. Persianate culture influenced courts, literature, architecture, and administration. The Mughal Empire transformed cities and landscapes. And centuries later, British colonial rule introduced another profound transformation. Each era left something behind. A ruin. A road. A language. A monument. A religious tradition. A style of art. A city built over the foundations of something older. This is what makes the history of Pakistan so unusual. Its story cannot be reduced to a single civilization, empire, or religion. It is a landscape where different worlds repeatedly met, collided, exchanged ideas, and left their fingerprints behind. And sometimes, those fingerprints are buried beneath the ground. Because beneath modern roads, farms, and cities, archaeologists are still finding evidence of societies that disappeared thousands of years ago. The remarkable part is not simply that these civilizations existed. It is that we are still discovering what they left behind. And perhaps the oldest ruins tell only half the story. The other half is still alive, carried in the languages, traditions, music, and identities of the people who live here today. Part 4, The People and Cultures You Rarely See. If the mountains reveal Pakistan's geography, and its ruins reveal its history, then its people reveal something even deeper. Because Pakistan is not one culture. It is a collection of languages, traditions, identities, and ways of life shaped by thousands of years of movement across this part of Asia. In the far north, the landscape changes everything. In the valleys of Gilgit-Baltistan, communities have developed traditions adapted to high-altitude environments, where mountains separate settlements and the seasons can determine the rhythm of everyday life. Among these communities are the people of Hunza, whose history is closely connected to the valleys and mountain routes surrounding them. But travel farther west, into the valleys of northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the cultural landscape changes again. Here live the Kalash, one of the smallest and most distinctive cultural communities in the region. Their traditions, festivals, clothing, music, and religious practices have developed differently from those of the Muslim majority surrounding them. The Kalash celebrate seasonal festivals that bring communities together through music, dancing, ceremonies, and social gatherings. Their culture has attracted attention from around the world. But there is something important to remember. The Kalash are not simply a historical curiosity. They are living communities, adapting to the modern world while trying to preserve traditions that have been passed from generation to generation. And that tension between continuity and change can be found across Pakistan. Travel south and the cultural landscape transforms once again. In Sindh, centuries-old traditions live alongside crowded cities, agricultural communities, colorful markets, and crafts that carry the influence of generations. Traditional Sindhi textiles and embroidery can contain patterns and techniques connected to local cultural heritage. In Punjab, one of the country's most populated regions, enormous cities and agricultural landscapes exist side by side. Here, Punjabi language and traditions remain deeply embedded in everyday life. Music, poetry, food, weddings, family gatherings, and religious festivals all contribute to a cultural identity that stretches far beyond the boundaries of any single city. And in Balochistan, the environment creates yet another way of life. Vast deserts, rugged mountains, and long distances have shaped communities whose traditions are closely connected to the geography around them. Across these regions, there is no single definition of what Pakistani culture looks like. The differences can be heard before they are seen. Different languages fill the streets. Different musical traditions emerge from different regions. Different foods reflect different landscapes. And traditional clothing can reveal where a person comes from, even before they speak. But modern Pakistan is changing rapidly. In Lahore, a centuries-old historical district can exist only a short distance from modern universities, technology companies, shopping centers, and busy highways. In Karachi, one of the largest cities in the country, millions of people live within a vast urban environment connected to the Arabian Sea and global trade. In Islamabad, modern architecture and carefully planned streets create an entirely different atmosphere. And across all of these cities, one generation is growing up with something their ancestors could never have imagined. A smartphone can connect a teenager in a remote mountain valley with almost anywhere on Earth. A student in Lahore can study at a university while following global trends online. A young entrepreneur in Karachi can build a business connected to customers thousands of kilometers away. The old world has not disappeared. It has simply begun interacting with a new one. Traditional markets still exist beside modern shopping districts. Ancient crafts are promoted through social media. Traditional music reaches audiences far beyond the communities where it originated. And young people increasingly have to decide which parts of their heritage they want to preserve, which parts they want to change, and how they want to define themselves in a rapidly transforming society. That is why Pakistan's cultural story is more complicated than images of ancient forts, mountain villages, or colorful festivals. The country is not frozen in the past. It is constantly negotiating between past and present. And perhaps that is the most important thing to understand about its people. They are not simply inheriting history. They are living inside it, while creating something new. Because Pakistan's greatest hidden story may not be its mountains, its monuments, or its ancient cities. It may be the millions of people who continue to reshape what this country means, every single day. And that brings us to the question that defines modern Pakistan. What happens when a country carrying thousands of years of history tries to build its future at extraordinary speed? Part 5, A Country Between Its Past and Its Future. Pakistan is a country where the past is rarely far away. In one direction, there are ancient ruins built thousands of years ago. In another, modern highways carry millions of people through enormous cities. A centuries-old market can stand beside a smartphone shop. A traditional craft can appear on social media. And a mountain valley once connected by footpaths can now be linked to the outside world by modern roads. This is the Pakistan of the 21st century. And perhaps nowhere is the contrast more obvious than in its cities. Karachi stretches along the Arabian Sea and serves as one of Pakistan's most important economic and commercial centers. Its skyline, ports, markets, universities, neighborhoods, and enormous population create a world completely different from the remote valleys of the north. Hundreds of kilometers away, Lahore offers another face of the country. Its history reaches through centuries of political and cultural change, leaving behind monumental architecture, gardens, mosques, markets, and streets where historical layers exist alongside modern urban life. Then there is Islamabad. Unlike the older cities, Islamabad was planned as a modern capital in the 20th century. Its wide avenues, green spaces, and carefully organized districts reflect a very different vision of what a capital city could be. 3 cities. 3 very different identities. And yet all 3 belong to the same country. Beyond them lies another Pakistan, one of mountains, deserts, agricultural plains, and remote settlements. This geographic diversity has always shaped the country's history. Pakistan sits at a remarkable crossroads. To the west are the routes leading toward Afghanistan in Central Asia. To the east lies India and the enormous South Asian plain. To the north is China, separated by some of the highest mountains on earth. And to the south, the Arabian Sea opens toward the wider Indian Ocean and the maritime routes of the Middle East, Africa, and beyond. Geography has made Pakistan important for thousands of years. The same basic reality that once brought ancient merchants across mountain passes continues to influence the country today. But the roads have changed. One of the most significant modern examples is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, commonly known as CPEC. The initiative is connected to China's broader Belt and Road framework and includes major infrastructure and energy projects intended to strengthen economic links between the two countries. For Pakistan, its geographic position gives these connections obvious strategic and economic significance. But the larger story is bigger than any single project. Pakistan is once again becoming part of a much wider conversation about trade routes, infrastructure, energy, transportation, and connectivity across Asia. In many ways, history is repeating itself in a completely modern form. Thousands of years ago, people crossed this region because geography connected distant civilizations. Today, highways, ports, energy networks, and digital communication are creating new forms of connection. But modernization also brings difficult questions. How can a country protect ancient archaeological sites while expanding its cities? How can traditional cultures survive when younger generations are increasingly connected to global culture? How can remote communities benefit from new infrastructure without losing the character that makes their regions unique? And how does a young and rapidly changing population build opportunities in a country facing significant economic and social challenges? There are no simple answers. Pakistan is neither a perfect paradise nor a place defined entirely by its problems. It is something much more complicated. It is a country in transition. Its cities are expanding. Its technology sector is developing. Its young population is increasingly connected to the wider world. At the same time, millions of people remain connected to agriculture, traditional industries, and local communities that have existed for generations. The contrast can sometimes feel almost surreal. In the north, a shepherd can move through a landscape dominated by glaciers and peaks rising thousands of meters into the sky. In Karachi, ships arrive from across the Arabian Sea. In Lahore, history and modern urban life occupy the same streets. And somewhere beneath all of it are the remains of civilizations that existed long before the modern idea of Pakistan. This is what makes the country so difficult to summarize. Pakistan is not simply ancient. It is not simply modern. It is both. It is a place where history continues to influence the present, while the present is rapidly reshaping the future. And perhaps that is the real story of Pakistan. Not what it was. Not what the headlines say it is. But what it is becoming. A country positioned between some of Asia's greatest civilizations, surrounded by extraordinary geography, carrying thousands of years of history into an uncertain future. The mountains remain. The ancient ruins remain. The traditions remain. But the world around them is changing. And Pakistan is changing with it.